Hey, good morning, folks. Welcome back to Walters Aircraft Works. It's August 19th, 2017. We're out here in the shop working on a little bit of a different project this morning. We're on hold with the RX-7 project because we haven't figured out how to solve the battery issue yet. But this is a project that we started a couple years ago and put it off to the side to finish some other stuff in the shop, and now we're thinking about resurrecting it and at least getting it back out to run this engine. It's a Cummins 4BT diesel engine. We bought it to convert a 71 K5 Blazer over to diesel. Like I said, we started the project several years ago, and started with the body work and the framework, and it got pushed to the back burner for other stuff. But we'd like to get back to it. I got my son Ben out here in the shop with me this morning, and he's going to help us get this thing ready to run. Hopefully we're going to run it right here on the stand. We got quite a few things to hook up. Well, of course, Jetson's here to help as well. Let's see, what we're going to do here, Ben. We're going to hook the induction system up. We have to connect the induction system to the top of the turbocharger, or the output of the turbocharger. We've got the exhaust hooked up already. We've got the water jacket. I think what we'll do is probably, since this is just a temporary run, we'll figure out a way to hook the garden hose and just flush water through the water jacket. As we, really the goal here is just to run it, get the oil pressure up, and to exercise it a little bit. So won't be running it for really any length of time. Should be able to just push some water through it with the garden hose. So we've got that to hook up. We've got a couple other oil issues. The guy that we bought this engine from was putting it into a Jeep project and ran out of energy or steam with it. So we bought the engine off of Craigslist, but he had it set up with a remote oil filter. So somehow we're going to have to figure out how to bypass or loop that around so we get good oil pressure out of it. But that's what we're working on this morning. We'll work on it a little bit, bring you guys back into it and show you our progress, and hopefully get this thing cranked up today. Alright, we didn't get done today. We didn't get it running. We made some progress. I lost my help about halfway through the day. You guys know what that's like, teenage boys, huh? Well, he's great help, and I appreciate it when I can get him. But work slowed down quite a bit after he left. So let me show you what we did. We wound up switching over to the original intake tube, which is not what I'm going to use when we put it in the truck, but for this purpose I think it's the easiest way to go. The other intake that we took off of here had it's a preheater. This engine doesn't have glow plugs in it, so how they heat the air coming into the intake is like a toaster. Got some heating elements in here and just warms the air as it goes into the induction system. We've taken that off and put the original setup back on, and let's see what else we've done. We had to mount the air conditioner. The only serpentine belt I had for it was the one for the air conditioner. This is an add-on bracket as well to mount this air conditioner, so instead of going out and buying a shorter serpentine belt, I just went ahead and added or put the air conditioning bracket on and the air conditioner pump on. That means the serpentine belt is the right length. For some reason I had to lengthen this tensioner for, it's not really even a tensioner, it's just a solid rod that holds the top of the alternator, and I had to add a little piece in here because I couldn't get the belt to work right without adding a section in here. Added about 1.25 inches worth of rod in here, but that's a pretty easy modification to make, and looks like it's going to work really well. Still got a couple other hurdles to cross here. I can't find my remote filter. I'm not even sure I ever had one, so I still have to Let me get you around here so you can see what I'm talking about. It's back behind the air conditioner there. Still gonna have to figure out, probably just put some spikes in here and loop a piece of hose around so the oil can flow, out the pressure side and into the return side, and do that for running of the engine. I might look for a remote filter element. Who knows how long this oil's been in here. And actually, I probably ought to drain the oil and service it before we start it. That's just thinking out loud here. That's probably what I'll do. Got to solve that riddle yet, and run some fuel line and a couple of electrical lines, and I think we'll be pretty close to ready to go. But it's going to be another day before we get to that. So probably not until next weekend when the boy comes back home. I promised him that I wouldn't run it until he got here. So tinker away with it here this week when I have an opportunity, and then after that should be able to get it cranked up and listen to it run. Well, good morning, folks. It's November 21st. Ben and I are back here in the shop, and as you can see, the engine looks significantly different. These projects kind of progress in the shop here. We didn't start off, or we started off making this video on just getting this engine to run, and then it snowballs. So we wind up doing more than we set out to do, but that's how it works. So we've done quite a bit to this engine. We've obviously cleaned it, we've painted it, we've put all new seals in it. It's had a new front crankshaft seal put in it, a rear crankshaft seal, oil pan gasket, front timing chain, timing gear gasket, or where is it? Accessory box. I don't know what they call this thing, the timing gears. It's had a new tensioner put on it, water pump, and about everything. The power steering pump has been changed over, regasketed, and cleaned up. So we're back ready to go. Oh, also the KDP has been fixed. I'll put some still footage or some still frame shots on how I fixed the KDP on it, the killer dowel pin. A real simple fix on this KDP. I just turned the barrel on the lathe, welded a piece of steel to it, shaped it, curved the end to kind of push in on that dowel pin. There's several aftermarket versions of this available, pretty reasonable priced, and available on the internet. And also I had to move the compressor forward. It wasn't lining up with the alternator or the rest of the pulleys. It had to come forward about 190 thousandths. Had to take the bracket off, do a bunch of milling, make some new mounts for it, and then put it all back together. So I'll put I put a video together on it, so I'll kind of edit it in, as well as some still shots as well. Hey guys, back to work on the Cummins 4BT, trying to get a little bit of work done. Ran into a little problem with the belt alignment, and trying to figure out a solution to the problem. My first problem was just, how do you check alignment? Poking around on the internet, I saw that there was a couple of options out there. There was, Gates makes a laser, and Dayco makes one. Looks like the Dayco rig is probably a little bit better than the Gates version, but they were kind of expensive, $100 or so, and I'm probably only going to use it once. So I started looking around, and I had a laser. I think it was for like a stud finder with a laser on the end of it, maybe some kind of, I don't know, cheesy laser level, but it wasn't very good. Didn't work very good for what I wanted to use it for. So I've taken it apart and cobbled together a belt alignment tool, pulley alignment tool. Here it is. Yep, don't laugh, but I think it's going to work. It's a piece of aluminum I just bent over, and he got the wife's hot glue gun out here, and put a couple of batteries in it. It's got a switch in it. Switch is getting a little gimpy right now. As you can see, it's having a hard time staying on. Maybe too much heat from the hot glue. But the idea is I can drop it here on the pulley and then check where it lines up with the air conditioning compressor and then adjust it as needed. Now, how do we adjust it? This, I believe, is an original Cummins part. Probably was not on this engine originally. I'm sure it wasn't, because I know the guy I bought the engine from mentioned that he bought it separately. Yeah, I know it's a Cummins part because it's made like a like a boat anchor. It's got enough casting in it, cast iron in it, to be a boat anchor. It's a solid part, but I'm not sure why I'm having alignment issues. Not only was there a fore aft alignment issue, but there was also a twist in the bracket. The compressor didn't set on there straight either, so I'm having to correct both those problems. But you can probably see here I've already started working on it. I milled this piece here out of a piece of steel, and then I milled off part of the cast iron bracket here to accept it. And there's already a couple of holes drilled in the end of this casting to accept. I'm sure this bracket is used for multiple different things. Maybe even the alternator bracket comes down and bolts to the top. But I'm going to pick up those holes through this piece of steel after I slide it out here, whatever I need. I think it's about 3/16 of an inch I need to bring it forward. And then once I get that placed right, I'll go ahead and start milling out the bottom two holes and get those positioned right as well, fore and aft, as well as being square. All right, so I'm going to tinker on this thing a little bit more, and I'll show you as we progress. I got a little bit farther along. Finished drilling and tapping the holes there. I had a little bit of a snafu. Yeah, that's not a lightning hole or a tooling hole. Actually, that was my original spot, and then this bar was an inch longer or so, and I broke the tap off and had to back up and punt. I just moved it down a little bit, re-indexed it, and drilled two more holes. It's frustrating when you get to the last hole and break the tap off, in a hurry and not taking my time. It looks like this is going to work pretty good. It looks pretty square. I've checked the alignment with the laser here several different ways. I've used it from the crankshaft pulley up to the air conditioning pump, and from this idler pulley to the air conditioning pump, from the air conditioning pump up to the alternator. And this looks like it's in good position here. I've only got one bolt holding, let's see, there it is, one bolt holding the bracket on right now, and I slotted that hole so I could move this bracket back and forth to get the position just right. And now I'll take it all back apart and drill and tap a couple of more holes in here. If I don't break any more taps, that's my plan. And then this will be nice and securely mounted to this bracket here. I've been double checking things with, not just using the old Fabricable laser here. I've also been using some welding rod stuck in the grooves here, and that works fairly well. I've used this 3/32 as well as some 1/16 inch welding rod. Let's see, here we go. And that works fairly well. I kind of like both. If you hold this down in the groove nice and secure, and let it stop wobbling, and then turn the pulley. I think you get a fairly good sense of how it works or how well it's aligned. I think that Daco alignment tool would probably be really nice. Maybe I'll spend the money and try to do it, or try to use it before I finish it up, but we'll see. Well, next, I think I need to take it back apart and mill the bottom end of that and create some kind of bracketry down there at the bottom. I also upsize these holes. These are 3/8, 16 flange bolts going in here. What are these? 7/16, and they were kind of wobbly in the holes, and allowed the air conditioner to kind of shift a little bit, and I didn't really like that, so I reamed these holes up with a reamer and used the 3/8 bolts, and that seems to hold it nice and secure. Here's the finished brackets. The bottom took quite a bit of milling to make it fit inside that casting. I secured it with 2 countersunk cap screws coming in from the back side, as you can see in this picture here. The final assembly looks like this, and wound up being attached with, I believe, a total of 6 screws or 6 bolts. Let's see, the exhaust has been painted with a high temp paint that really is not supposed to be baked on until it's run. If you have an oven that's capable of high temperatures, you can do it in an oven. Obviously you wouldn't want to do that on the turbocharger, but the exhaust manifold you could. So that's still got to be cured, and I'm excited to see how that's going to turn out. Ben's pulling it out of the cabinet now so we can show you what the brand is. Let's see. Alright, so yeah, this is what the engine was painted with Duplicolor Cummins beige, and then the exhaust was painted with this VHT flame-proof. There was another brand that was available, or it looked like a ceramic coating. I tried to get a hold of it. It was on the internet. I found it poking around the internet, and was unable to. Guy wouldn't sell it to me. Sells it to dealers only or distributor. I don't know. It's a commercial coating, so he wouldn't sell it directly to me. So I wound up using this stuff. Had pretty good reviews. We'll see how it turns out. Well, we got it all oiled up. Put 10 quarts of oil in it. It's got antifreeze in it. The power steering pump has fluid in it, and obviously you can see it's just routed back through the return line, so the pump doesn't run dry. That's all the reason that we have the hosing hooked up here, is just to keep the pump from running dry. Same deal on the antifreeze. Just got it routed back through. We don't plan on running it very long, just long enough to warm it up. And the goal here is to keep it in this configuration until we get the truck ready, and occasionally run the engine. I've started a log we'll write down every time we crank it up, just kind of keep the oil circulated and keep it in good running condition. Obviously the fuel lines, the injector lines have all been off from it. We put them back on, and yesterday we put the fuel back in the tank, and Ben used the hand pump down there to push most of the air out of the system. Hopefully we can just crank this thing up without having to bleed the injectors here at the B-nuts. But we're getting ready to give it a try, and let's see what happens. All right, we'll put a battery charger on the battery, and looks like we may have to do some bleeding on the injectors, but obviously the oil started to flow, and we did start to get some combustion out of it. I can smell it, and you could hear it starting to hit. But obviously we just looped back around for the oil filter, and I wound up using this vinyl tubing on it so we could see the oil flow, and that's working well. Same on the antifreeze. The idea here with the vinyl tubing is, over the next few months while working on the truck, we can kind of keep it in condition on, or keep an eye on the condition of the antifreeze, and make sure it's still looking fresh. But we'll get the battery charged up and give it a try here in a minute. All right, here we go. Start attempt number 2. All right, hold on. Let's do a little bleeding here. All right, roll it over. All right. Sorry for the wiggly camera. All right, hit it, Ben. Oh, that's not good. Oh. All right. Fire in the hole. It's so clean, I hate to do this. All right, hit that one. All right. All right. Let it charge for a minute more and we'll go at it. Alright guys, kind of a pieced together hodgepodge video, but hopefully it's helpful to someone. We got a lot of great things coming with this project and with the RX-7 as well. Hope to get batteries in sometime after the first of the year and get back on that project. And then as soon as we roll that one out of the shop, the truck's coming back in to finish this conversion. Thanks for watching, and appreciate all the positive comments, and hope everybody's doing well. See you next time.